Hey everyone, I want to talk all about subtle compulsions, easy things that we fall into. A lot of the things I'm about to talk about are little subtle compulsions that I fell into. Sometimes that took me 1 to 2 years to really figure out. It's not all of them I was completely unaware of or naive to. A lot of them I really did think they weren't the end of the world. It wasn't until I started to really get better and I realized that a lot of these little things had to go if I wanted to reach the long-term recovery I was looking for. And I had to come to a conclusion that I was going to do whatever it takes to decrease some of these smaller ones. And a lot of this plays in also to the no line in the sand. So a lot of people hear me talk about OCD sufferers are obsessed with looking for a line in the sand. So they're constantly always trying to figure out, is this a compulsion? Is that a compulsion? And while you can get some degree of certainty on it, if you're looking for dire certainty all the time, it's going to be impossible to get that. And OCD is going to convince you that every single thing you do is a compulsion. The amount of times you pick up your phone, the amount of times you leave a room, the amount of times you wash your clothes, and not even so much in a ritualistic manner. It's just going to question everything you're doing. Am I clicking this pen top too many times? Am I writing too much when I take notes in school, etc., etc.? So there is a large degree that you want to lean into uncertainty. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button down below. Many people know that I really enjoy making these subtle videos on compulsions and avoidance behaviors, since there are a lot of them that we see, including myself, and engaging in them. And if you want some help for us to coach you and break down those fears, or the webinars that we hold every single Tuesday, 8:30 p.m. UK time, and sometimes Friday as well, if it's a part 1 and 2 series, please email info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in timely fashion. Again, that is info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Now, before I go into all these different ones I have in my mind I want to talk about, it is important to say that a lot of these things are not inherently good or bad, but they are things you want to be aware of because of the reasons why you're doing them. And again, you're not going to be able to get certainty. Already starting this video, some of you will be really frustrated because you're looking for a direct blueprint and you're not going to be able to find that direct blueprint. The first thing I want to talk about is supplements such as ashwagandha. And the reason why I want to talk about ashwagandha specifically, there are millions of people around the world that have chronic OCD and anxiety-based disorders that take ashwagandha and think it's completely okay, which it's not inherently bad or good. There's just really no need to take it in order to decrease anxiety. Now, people will say to me, the counter to that will say, well, you guys could say talk to your doctors about medications. Yeah, but there's usually a much bigger fear of taking medications because of the side effects, where most people won't even look at side effects with ashwagandha, which there's none, and they'll just take it. And if you go on and listen to someone who doesn't understand OCD, which is 99.9% of anyone in mental health, let alone the general community, you know, if you're not in mental health, you're not going to understand OCD at all unless you have a family member that has it. If you're in the space, you're probably not going to understand it 99.9% anyway. There's probably only a handful of people. I can literally name 10 people that maybe understand chronic OCD, and all of them have actually had it and come out the other side. That's just the way this particular disorder works. Not to put anyone down for the work they do, but it is really important to cover that. A lot of people don't like to hear that, but it simply is the truth. So, you know, if you go on a podcast that, you know, a lot of these big health gurus, some of you can think of some of the ones we're thinking about. Maybe you see them on Joe Rogan's podcasts, et cetera, and they talk about the benefits of taking these supplements. What these people don't understand is why OCD and anxiety sufferers are taking these supplements. They're taking these supplements for a desperate search for control to decrease any amount of symptoms. Now, this is understandable as the suffering you're experiencing is quite severe. Constant panic, constant anxiety, different symptoms, blurry vision, heart palpitations, jitteriness, sweating, irritability, and you're thinking, if I could just take the edge off with this ashwagandha, but that is giving into a compulsion 99% of the time. The same thing like sleeping medications, and that's the second thing I want to talk about. Anything that's a medication, I'm not here to advise on that. Always speak to your provider. But what the individual wants to do who's suffering with insomnia or insomnia-based fears, including burnout, being overwhelmed, the fear of making mistakes, and your OCD and anxiety getting worse, is you're going to want to decrease all of those sleep medications, because you will tightly hold on to those as a compulsion for some sort of certainty. If I just take this at night. And a lot of people who do end up, you know, taking my advice on board and they cut it, a lot of them get super big spikes because they don't realize how much of a compulsive search that was. So remember, we have the ashwagandha supplement sides, the over-the-counters, which people are spending thousands of dollars a month on. I've met people. Then you have the sleeping aids, such as the Ambiens and all the other stuff I see. Understandable, and again, always speak to your provider, but you really have to ask yourself, what's the reason why you're taking it? The third thing I want to talk about is picking, whether it's your nails, picking your nose. I did this a lot, like pick the inside of my nose. I work with a lot of people that do stuff like this a lot. This is an understandable little tweak. It's not, doesn't have to be directly related to OCD and anxiety, but it is something to watch out for. Now, you obviously have the trick dose where people are pulling their hairs out or they're eating things, et cetera, et cetera. You know, in severe cases, that's not what we work with, but there is more than likely a correlation in the genetic component. But again, that's a different conversation. But it is something to be aware of. You know, you want to see, you know, am I picking my skin a lot? Am I biting my nails a lot? Bringing that down. I'll show you my nails. Now, I have psoriasis. So one of the symptoms of psoriasis is pitting nails. So it's hard to kind of see. If you look at this nail here, like you can kind of see the shape of it, how it goes down. Like my nail right here has been eaten away from my autoimmune condition. You can kind of see it, like how it dips down up here. That's part of the symptoms from psoriasis because it's an autoimmune condition. Now, if you look at my fingers, I actually have cuticles and I have nails. There's a pretty good view of it. But if you would have looked at my fingers in the past, all my cuticles and all the skin around on my nails were like halfway gone. That was a really big compulsive behavior I did. And that needed to go in many cases because it didn't allow me to want to sit with discomfort. Again, not saying you're never going to pick your skin again, but again, balance is key for all this stuff. The fourth thing I want to talk about as a subtle compulsion is physical reassurance. Now, a lot of people understand in the community that reassurance, such as the simple ones, you know, am I a bad person? Am I going to be able to recover? Do you love me? Et cetera, et cetera. Then a lot of people miss the second tiers, which is the venting compulsions, where they are seeking affirmation and reassurance, but they're not asking direct questions. The third one, which is almost always missed, is the physical reassurance, where you're afraid to be alone if you have ROCD and you just want to be around your partner. This is a big one that we see. You know, they say, I just want to be around my mother. I want to lay in bed with my spouse. I just want to be around my brother and sister. I just want to go out and socialize and be around people because of the fear of losing control and being alone. This type of reassurance is super sneaky and subtle, and it is something you want to watch out for, and that's a big one. The fifth one I'm going to talk about, when some people watch this, they are going to laugh. They're going to know who they're talking about. They'll know who they're talking about. And this is something that goes way beyond the people I'm joking about in this particular section. And that's compulsive note-taking. Now, again, there's nothing inherently wrong with taking notes. And no, you'll not be able to get a line in the sand on how much note-taking is compulsive or not compulsive. One that used to affect me a lot is, you know, like, so you could see the timer up above when you're making a video. I used to convince myself I could never look, or I would convince myself that, you know, I have to look every minute or something. These are just little subtle things that no one ever talks about. Am I checking this too much? Is this a compulsion? Am I picking my skin too much again? Compulsive note-taking is something that we see a lot. The sufferer drastically trying to look for control. So you'll come to a call and you'll see like, you know, excuse me. And what the sufferer wants to do is become comfortable with not needing to take notes. Again, it's not that you can write anything down ever, but I can usually tell when they come in, especially in the first or second call, in the webinars, the desperate search for looking to, you know, I don't want to forget anything. What if I forget something? And that all comes down to trying to control your recovery process and thinking you're going to be able to recover, you know, on a timely fashion, which isn't the case. The sixth subtle compulsion I want to talk about when it comes to being fatigued or fear of burnout or overwhelming is subtly avoiding phone calls and subtly skim reading. I'm going to put those two together, even though they're quite different, but they're still off the same context. Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I really can't stand reading. I don't want to have to read this whole thing through. The other thing is they'll go, oh, I'm too busy. I don't want to answer this phone call. Again, everything we're talking about, it's important to say multiple times now, there is no line in the sand. You're not going to be able to get certainty on these things. This is really important to cover. So again, just look how you're operating at work. Are you avoiding subtle tasks? I know I was in my business. Many little subtle things. I put a lot of stuff on Erica's back and I simply was just avoiding, and that was just the reality of it. And these all play into low frustration tolerance as well. You know, those are really the main ones I wanted to talk about. But, you know, there are other subtle ones as well that are all common among all OCD and anxiety-based disorders, like leaving social events early if you feel like you're a little bit too overwhelmed, avoiding tiny little things like going to family gatherings, Those are big ones. Not following particular pages on social media because of political, religious, or monetary stuff. Those are really the big three, as I like to call them, that give really, really large emotional disturbances. Not watching certain movies like horror movies where people are being murdered or tortured. Fear of harmocity, losing control, that being you. Avoiding stuff with children in it if you have POCD, etc., etc. So all these tiny things. The moral of the story is there are really subtle compulsions that many people, it takes a while to really kind of understand what's going on. Look into what you think it is. You're not going to be able to nail them all down in one day. Thank you so much for watching this video. Again, if you're interested in our coaching and webinar services and you think you have some of these subtle compulsions you're still engaging in, please email us at info@ocdrecovery.com and we will get back to you in a timely fashion. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.